John Lindley puts out the popular Parker's Tip Sheet, now entering its 25th year. Lindley is the handicapper behind the tip sheet and puts in the time necessary to make it and himself a success in the game of picking winners. He gathers the most information he can by combining the live eye with the television video and audio experience.
For the most part, I start paying attention as soon as the horses start walking over from the receiving barn. Try to see any information at all that I can get when they're in the paddock being saddled, or when you're in the paddock talking about them and they show them on the television. Even though I'm here at Emerald, I don't actually walk over to the paddock most of the time. Any information, how the horse is acting, if it looks like it feels good, if the trainer is having trouble saddling it, any of that type of stuff can be important later on. When they come out in the post-parade, same thing.
Many handicappers and bettors like Lindley are paying attention to last-minute cues before the race begins, but continue to make written and mental notes once the gates open.
I watch it live with the binoculars, and then of course I do the race notes here, which means I get a tape which shows me 4 different views of the races, and I study those rather intensely during the week to make the notes and keep track of all the horses for the people that get the race notes for free at Emerald.
A trained eye can pick up a lot of information during a live race.
During the running of a race, I do what probably a lot of people do, and that is see what happens to every horse. From the time they enter the gate, if they're settled, do they act up in the gate, do they break well, what's the rider doing during the race, where's the horse located, is it getting in trouble, is it wide, is it having everything go its way. And then when they come back, same thing, see how they unsaddled, see how they walk off, see maybe what the connections are doing in terms of talking to each other after the race. Just whatever type of information I can see, because you never know what's going to be useful next time.
There's always post-race work to be done, finding the best horse next time around.
The races are over, I calculate speed figures, or commonly, for example, buyer figures are commonly used by a lot of people. I do my own, and what I normally would do is calculate what's called a fractional figure and a final time. I just want to know, how did the speed of the racetrack affect the final times and the fractional times of every race. I combine that with what happened to the horse during the race. Did the horse have trouble? Did the horse have anything significant happen to it that may affect that horse's performance? So that gives me a really good idea of what type of effort each horse had in every race. When they come out next time, then I'm going to use that information to try to predict how they're going to run today.
Lindley grew up using the daily racing form and still does.
I use a daily racing form, but not exclusively. I think there are some things in a daily racing form that a lot of other people use that I don't, but I'll use it just to get a general timing of the horse's races between starts, because for me, spacing of races is really important. The better spacing of races, the better effort you're going to get. And when horses have run really good races in small periods of time, they tend not to run well in the future, and maybe the opposite.
Lindley is a published author, having written Handicapping, for Better or Worse, a well-received publication available at the Gift Horse at Emerald Downs or online. He's also into picking the best horse in each race, whether it be the 4-5 favorite or a 9-1 outsider. He has angles that aren't necessarily mainstream, too.
I'm not afraid to bet horses that are 1 for 20 or 0 for 30. If I see a horse that I like and I think is going to run really well today, I'm not going to worry about its one loss.
Then there's the oft-quoted key race factor, used by many.
The last thing probably I don't pay too much attention to is what a lot of people call a key race, where they'll look at how other horses did out of a race to predict today's effort. For example, if you see a horse that ran second today to a horse that came back and won, they would imply that horse may be better than it shows. And for various reasons, horses win and lose races all the time, and everybody knows that. Therefore, what another horse does isn't going to affect what I think of a different horse in a different scenario.
Gary Dougherty's been the public handicapper for the Seattle Times ever since Emerald Downs began 13 years ago. Dougherty's worked for the Seattle Times since 1988, so being computer literate happened long ago for him. He's moved pretty much toward gathering his handicapping information online.
Well, I usually, once the PPs come out, I'll download them onto my computer from Briz and use those mainly to go through the card. I can get the Briz stuff quicker, and it's easier to download, and I've become used to looking at it on my computer on a printed sheet They give you internal fractions of how fast horses are running. So if you have 2 or 3 horses that go to the lead, Briz will break it down and tell you which horse ran faster of the 2 or 3. So you can get an idea of how the race is going to set up.
There's more to look at. Dougherty's known for spreading data out over an entire area.
I have trip notes that I've written down through the programs of the pass. So I'll go through a printed version of the PPs and jot down what horses got in trouble and take notes. That's the first thing I do, go through the entire card. Then I'll go through and highlight all the top jockeys and trainers and see who they have in that day's races. Well, like last year, Seth Martinez was winning a lot of races, and I just kind of want to know where he is in each race and where Tim McCann is and Frank Lucarelli. And you know, if you can find some horses of those who you think you can bet against, then you're looking for value, and you might find a race where you can make some money.
He's here every day for the live event, and consistent with his personality, does things a little differently than most.
Well, when the race goes off, I'll stand up with my binoculars, and I don't like to watch the horses on the front end because that's what they're showing on TV. So I'll pay my attention to the horses in the back and see what horses get in trouble, if any do, and then follow those horses and be able to watch the race replay for the horses I think who got in trouble on the backside when it's not on TV.
Again, the theme of watching video comes out.
Really enjoy watching the race 3 or 4 times, especially if you can stop it and go back. It takes a lot of time, but you can pick up small things that you can use the next time they run by jotting it down. You know, a horse that gets shut off on the inside at the 2 furlongs in the race, it might not be in the chart, but you have it on your notes. So when that horse comes back, it could be 8-10 to 1. It could be a live long shot. I have racereplays.com on my computer, so I can spend $10 a month and get all the replays I want. Watch the head-on, also watch the race many times. The idea is to see a race half a dozen times, because you can't see everything in 2 or 3 takes. You got to spend the time.
Dougherty's been publishing the Emerald Downs Insider for 13 years.
I use the Emerald Downs Insider, which gives you all the trainer stats for all the trainers out here from the last 5 years.
Dougherty cites some specific useful data in the Insider.
I think one of them is Frank Lucarelli with horses that come back in 10 or less days. He had a 32% strike rate with a $3.20 ROI.
Top Take is tearing home for Ricky Frazier from nowhere. Fred's Golden in front now. Slow Water runs deep from the clouds. Fred's Golden will hang on and win by a neck. Slow Water runs deep second. Top Take third. In the lead is Tropical River. Top Take is coming fast. Top Take on the inside, taking over now from Tropical River. And it's like deja vu from a few starts ago, and Top Take wins well. Top Take by 3. Tropical River second, then top of class Justel and Wall Street Wally late.
I think going back to all 14 years, he has a huge ROI.
As we've seen, even the pros have their likes and dislikes, and Dougherty's anti-mainstream in the Beyer speed figure area.
I think it's really gained a lot of attention because it's bold, it's right there in the form, it's talked about. But these figures are made by people, and they're judging, how fast they think that card was that day. And I really think it's overemphasized to a point where if a horse is a big number and the horse could have had a perfect trip and just hung, people are still going to bet that horse because they perceive him to be the fast horse. But horses change. I mean, you see dramatic changes, in a horse's finish, and so sometimes you've got to go in a different direction and not use what everybody else is using.
Thanks to experienced professionals John Lindley and Gary Dougherty for adding more handicapping insight.